Hi, I'm James Jenkins, and you're watching What's Your Story, Vancouver. Today we're back in beautiful West End, Vancouver at Cardero Bottega, and we're speaking with local author and psychotherapist Stephen Lake. Can you give everyone some backstory on who you are?
Well, I'm originally from Montreal. I went to theater school there, did 3 years of theater school, and then I came out west, go west, young man, and I was in the community here, mainly stage. I did some film stuff and, the old 21 Jump Street and all those TV shows that were going on way back in the 80s, I guess that is.
Iconic Vancouver
Yeah,
shows.
it was lots of fun. And then I ended up owning the Vancouver Actors Institute.
Okay.
And so I was doing that for about 17, 18 years. And then I went through a career change. I was doing a lot of stuff with the Human Potential Movement, so leading workshops on communication in particular, and self-discovery stuff. And then I sort of morphed into a therapist. So I went back to school at the ripe old age of 37 and got 3 degrees and started practice. Yeah.
So why the jump to therapy? What?
Well, I found when I was directing, which I loved, and I loved working with actors, but I felt that there was something more that I wanted. And when you're working with an actor or an actress, your purpose is to create the emotion and the context and the scene for a particular effect with the audience. And I wanted to go deeper than that. And therapy, I'm dealing with, real situations. As I used to say, I used to play psychopaths. Now I work with them.
Exactly. Was your research in acting to help you at all in your career then?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, as an actor and director, you're talking characters, you're talking about people.
Yeah.
And so it really wasn't a hard step to make at all. Yeah. And in therapy, there's something called drama therapy and psychodrama. So, we use even therapeutic techniques to help people to discover and work through their issues.
Yeah. You work with a wide range of people, some couples to inmates to individuals. Can you you've worked for some pretty rough characters as well?
I worked with some really rough characters, yeah. I worked in the prison system for about 3 years, and I worked on the ABC unit, which is an acronym for Aggressive Behavioral Control. And those were like people who were very violent. They were so violent in their home prisons, they were sent to us for training, 8-month training program.
Wow.
Yeah, so there were cop killers there and people, schizophrenics who had killed multiple people, different things like that. And I also worked on the sexual offender unit as well.
Okay.
So that was mostly pedophiles. Yeah.
You'd be a great guy for a screenwriter to talk to to get some ideas.
I have some stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Myself, I have PTSD, and you've worked with me, and one therapy I've never heard of until we tried it, and I really liked it, was EDMR therapy. Can you kind of...
EMDR.
EMDR, sorry.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Yeah.
Can you just talk about that at all?
Well, it's a very unusual therapy. It's fairly new. It's about 30 years old now. And it started by Dr. Shapiro. She's in California. She's walking around the lake where she lived in. And she's thinking about a traumatizing event in her childhood. And when she finished her walk, she went, "That's weird. It doesn't bother me anymore." And she thought, well, what was I doing? And what she was doing, she realized she was moving her eyes back and forth fairly rapidly. So she went, "Oh, that's interesting." She was a psychologist. So she tried it again, and she got another positive result. She did it again, same thing. She said, "Maybe I've got something here." So she started experimenting with her friends, and then eventually she started creating actual experiments and seeing what was going on, trying to identify what was happening. And now there's like over 30,000 people certified in this particular method. They use it in VA hospitals, Veterans Administration hospitals in the States, for PTSD.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, that you found it useful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's evolved there, and it's an unusual technique What I like about it is you do pre and post scores. So one of the first things you do is severity of disturbance. So how upsetting is that when you think about it? You go, oh, a 9 out of 10. Okay, that's really upsetting. And then we do the technique, and then we ask, well, how is it now? Oh, it's a 7. Good, we're going in the right direction. And we continue like that until it goes down to a 0 or 1. Basically, it's extinguished.
Okay.
Then we go on to the next issue.
You also work with couples.
Yes.
Can you kind of go into that a bit? Like married couples?
I do a lot of relationship work. I have 2 areas. I focus on trauma, which obviously people with PTSD have had trauma of some sort. Work with people who have been tortured from work countries, stuff like that. And I've always worked with couples and I've had a particular interest in relationships myself. And I started doing couples work, and now I do more and more. And eventually, I noticed the same problems were coming up with couples. And the familiar phrase I got all the time was from women was, well, he doesn't know how to communicate. So I thought, I'm tired of sort of teaching the same thing over and over. I thought, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
Took me a while, but I finally wrote a book.
It's right here.
Here it is.
Right.
This is a book I wrote.
The clean-shaven version of Steven.
That's right, the clean shaven. I was a little younger there too.
Yeah.
It talked to me how to communicate with women, tune up your relationship, tone down the fights, dodge divorce, and have sex more than once a year.
And how's it been received so far?
Well, I'm just about to start the 3rd printing.
Oh, nice.
Actually, I'm kind of out. I just recently got rid of the last few ones.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's doing well. I'm happy. It's on Amazon. You know, we have the
to be on Amazon now.
Yeah, you have hardcover, softcover, and the ebook just came out a few months ago. So that's $9.99 or something like that. $9.95. Yeah.
How would you describe today's modern relationships and dating?
It's way tougher.
Yeah.
Nowadays, way tougher. In my day, the roles were really clear as to feminine and masculine roles. Very simple, very well defined. So you kind of knew what to expect. Nowadays, it's shifted. Obviously for women, they're much more empowered. They're in the workforce and actually in equal numbers, and they expect equal rights, as so they should. And but that's created some shifting in how people are interacting. So now it's more like equal partners engaging. There's also the roles. Men now are more able to be more feminine. So you had, a few years back, the metrosexual, stuff like that. But along the way, I noticed a lot of men were getting confused. Guys in particular around the 40 years of age mark were, it's like the rules have changed.
Yeah,
so when they grew up, when they were younger.
Taking time to readjust, I guess.
Yeah. So when they were 20 and now, 20 years later, things have shifted. And the rules have changed. And so there's a lot of upset and confusion. And to me, it makes me sad because I know a lot of guys have actually given up on relationships. And it's like, oh my God, you're young, you're good looking, you've got everything going for you, and you've given up.
I think a lot of women have given up too, in Vancouver maybe at least. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, for women, I hear the story of, there's a lot of players out there.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in that. They want a relationship.
Yeah, of course.
So that's, as far as young people, that's what I see. With older people, like people in their 50s and 60s, there's different issues that come up. Physical issues that are getting in the way of their sexual relationship, stuff like that. Maybe boredom in the relationship. Actually, I just wrote an article that's online I'm an editor and writer with the Good Men Project.
Okay.
And that's about redefining masculinity. That's the whole purpose of that.
Where do people find the Good Men Project?
Just goodmenproject.com.
Okay.
Yeah. It's we get about 3 million views a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's doing very well. It's been going on for a number of years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember you actually mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I know with all the dating apps and Tinder and Bumble and Plenty of Fish, what I've noticed is people don't have time to meet, or there's somebody you can get lots of matches, but and you end up with lots of pen pals, but no one's actually meeting up. I guess. And can you comment on that? Is everyone, like you mentioned before, women are working more now, and the last 20 years, I suppose, but or more.
Yeah.
30 years, let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just find like people just don't have any time anymore. The people, especially in Vancouver, people are working so much, and then they have their friend time and all that stuff. So
Yeah, it's hard to break in. I think even though online you can meet a lot of people. I have one client who's very successful online. He finds interesting people. He's a musician himself. He's an interesting kind of guy. But really, I think it depends on your ability to have a relationship, to find somebody that you can work with and who's willing to work on the relationship too. I mean, so if you just want a quick hookup, well, yeah, that's great. You know, swipe left, swipe right, or whatever. You know, find somebody that way. But if you want something more, I think one of the best ways is to, in your community of friends, you know, meet people live, one-on-one, in a situation that's not so forced, if you will. It's like, okay, we're here to meet each other, and hi, I'm Steven. Pleasure to meet you. Oh my God, you know.
good job interview almost.
Yeah. Whereas if you just meet at a party, it's casual conversation, and if you like each other, it's, oh, well, you know, let's get together for coffee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, you know, or if you're doing a hobby, you know, whether you're kayaking or doing something like that, or a dragon boat racing or whatever.
Just being active, I guess.
Yeah, so you're being out there, being active, doing things you like. So you meet people who have similar interests, right? So that gives you a foundation from which to then feel comfortable to engage. Yeah. So it is much tougher in many ways, you know, out there. I'm kind of glad that I'm not in the game anymore. I've been in almost 20 years in a relationship right now. You know, that presents other challenges, but at least you've got, when you're in a relationship, I find there's real opportunity for growth. You know, and yeah.
Well, speaking about you being in a relationship, can you mentioned before, and it really resonated with me, was in a relationship, you could be in a relationship with someone for X amount of years, but you could be so different. You mentioned before something about the language of love, or the five languages of...
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the 5 love languages.
5 love languages. Yeah, exactly.
Often we feel that we're not getting the kind of love or the love in the way we want. And our partner may feel the same way. And it comes from our family of origin. In other words, how is love expressed? So maybe it was words, okay? So words of affirmation. People say, I love you, I love you. So, and that was true for me. So when my partner wasn't saying, I love you, I was going, what's wrong? Because her love language was acts of service. So doing things.
Exactly.
And so she was doing things which I was like, doesn't really mean much to me. And I'm saying, I love you, it doesn't mean much to her. We're both feeling a little, you know, miffed at what's going on. It's not that we don't love each other, but how we express it.
She wanted you to do the dishes or something.
Exactly.
Like
that.
Yeah,
that just turns her on to no end.
That's funny.
And one day we're at the table and I was complaining about something, and she slams her fist down. She says, "Don't you get it?" She says, "I cook every meal for you." And I went, Jesus, she does. She must love me a lot. And because that's how she shows her love, is by doing things. Yeah.
So that's probably where a lot of the trouble comes in long-term relationships, is people don't realize that your partner expresses or needs love in a different way.
Yeah, and it's really important to find out what that is. I highly recommend it. The five love languages, again, you just go on Amazon, and it's very cheap, easy read, short, and to really understand. Some people, it's touch, right? They need touch, words of affirmation, acts of service. Some it's gifts. You give them gifts, they're just thrilled for the next week. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
For other people, you give a gift, it's like, yeah, thanks. The others going, what's going on? I thought, you know, I'm trying to show my love to you.
Yeah.
But if you
they go broke trying to show their love.
Right, that's right. But if they know what your love language is and you know what theirs is, then you can appreciate it. So now, my wife was always looking for a comment on the food. You know, she works in the food industry as well, and so she'd make this beautiful food for me, and I'm like, oh, thanks, you know, and I eat away. She's like, and?
You
I'm
just
like, and
nailed
what? It's great, you know. So now it's like, oh, this looks lovely. Geez, thank you, honey. And oh man, it tastes great, which it does.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not making it up. So,
Makes it easier.
and then she feels loved or appreciated for the love that she's shown for me. And usually people have a primary one and a secondary one as well. But if you know what they are, it makes a huge difference. Because then you can actually take the time and effort to make sure that person is receiving love in the way that they know what it means. Yeah.
Right now, there's a movement in the film industry here in BC. There's a hashtag called Call Time Mental Health, and there's been a lot of, well, not to say a lot, but there's been some suicides or depression, a lot of depression and alcohol and drug abuse in the film industry. And I'm sure you've seen it or that kind of thing. And I just want to know if you have any advice for people in the film industry, like what should they do, talk to, or like how should they cope with it, the long hours?
Yeah, it's a very demanding industry. You know, I worked in the film industry as well, and especially, you know, for younger actors. I mean, there was always, even in my day, there was always drugs and alcohol. You know, a lot of people OD'd. You know, that's whether it was John Belushi or whomever. I remember one of the cast members on 21 Jump Street, he OD'd as well. So there's a real accessibility to drugs, and now it's even more dangerous with fentanyl, or not fentanyl, with fentanyl and stuff. And so the main thing is to realize that it's important to take care of yourself. To know that if you're not sleeping a lot, that's going to make you tired, irritable, maybe not make the best making, the best decisions that you could.
Yeah, everyone's working like long hours, especially now because it's the industry's so busy.
That's right. And so how do you take care of yourself? Making sure that you have friends, making sure that if you are getting wired out, that you've got some people you know, you can say, hey, I need to talk, I'm getting really low here. So friends, I would say, are really critical. And reach out. Don't go, oh, I can handle it by myself. You know, that old macho thing.
Well, there's a bit of a stigma to like mental health, and so people are kind of like shy away from bringing something up because they don't want to feel weird. Or
well, and especially
I can relate to that.
Especially for men, you know, that's an old cultural trope, if you will. You know, I should be able to handle it.
Yeah.
I'm a strong man. If I can't handle it, I'm weak, and therefore not a man, which is ridiculous. You know? I see more men now are more willing to come to therapy now than, say, 20 years ago, and that's great. You know, psychotherapy, counseling, whatever you want to call it, it's there as a support. You don't have to be sick to come to therapy, not at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's really about your own personal growth and looking at your life and making changes so that you're happier, that you have your life going the way you would like it to go. So again, going back to, you know, if you're stressed out in the film industry, make sure you take the time to talk to your friends. And if that's not enough, because friends aren't therapists, right?
And they can only take on so much.
That's right, and they may be stressed and stuff too.
Exactly.
And then, okay, well then get a professional.
Yeah.
You know, some place where you can just sort of hang, say what's true for you, feel what you need to feel.
Just to get things off your chest and on your shoulders.
Exactly. I find a lot of people, they say just talking about it helps. It's not like we have to even change anything, sometimes just talking about it. A safe place where they can come and say what they need to say, feel what they really need to feel, and identify some areas maybe where they can make some changes. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be drinking as much, you know, or maybe I shouldn't be partying quite as much, because if I'm working hard and partying, you know, when do I sleep? You know, things like that.
The big issue for me at the time was being indecisive. And I found when you told me just make a decision no matter what it is, just choose one, A or B, and go with it.
That's right.
And I really felt that helped.
Great. Yeah, totally, because when we're not at top form, making decisions becomes difficult. And what I remember what I used to say was, make a decision, because if it's the wrong one, you'll find out real quick. And then you can change it.
Yeah,
because we get so afraid, you know, I'm going to make the wrong choice. Who cares? Just make a choice.
Yeah.
And then at least you feel like you're taking action, because we get stuck. That's why taking action, you'll find out quickly if it's the right one or not, and then take another action.
100%, because I know one of the symptoms, I guess, of PTSD is just taking forever to do something, or just like, because you ponder it in your mind forever, and like think of every outcome, and instead of just doing it and then dealing with the outcome.
Yeah, part of that's sort of a response to trauma. It's like you don't want to put yourself in a vulnerable place. You don't want to be hurt again, right? So you have to consider all the well, of course, there's thousands of possibilities, right?
Yeah.
And you can't consider everything,
Yeah.
and that of course is upsetting. Like I know I can't get all the options in my brain happening,
Yeah.
and so it becomes very easy not to make a choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stephen, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
And well, where can everyone find you?
Oh, well, online, LinkedIn, Facebook, a couple of Facebook pages, Twitter, the typical social media stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, my website's lakecounselling.com, therelationshipguy.ca. If you go in the next day or two, they may not be up because I was hacked, so all my websites are down, so they're being rebuilt.
Okay.
But they will be up shortly.
Mm-hmm.
But or you can phone me. Just call me 604-505-3536
Mm-hmm.
and leave a message. You can text or phone, and I'll get back to you usually within 24 hours, and we can set something up if need be.
Excellent. Again, this is the book. Make sure you get that on Amazon. And his links will all be in the descriptions if you can't remember all that below. And thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
What's your story, Vancouver? Our city, our stories.